Janevelezmitchell with Jane Unchained. Here is our mascot. And we are talking about animals, but a different kind of animal. We're talking about farm animals and the massive farm bill that is winding its way through Congress, and the woman who wants to do something to change how the government basically does handouts to animal agriculture, which is destroying our planet. Connie Spence, welcome. Thank you for looking into the camera eye, and tell us what you are planning to do in terms of hiring vegan lobbyists to hit the nation's capital.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of want to go back to where it started, which was about 6 months ago. And as you know, I do a lot of activism. I do what's called the Vegan Batman Light. And I was very successful at veganizing people and talking to people about the realities that, you know, we face when it comes to animal agriculture, people's health, and so on. I've been vegan for 8 years, and I've been waiting for the number of animals that are dying in this country to drop as I'm seeing veganism rise. And I noticed that it never drops. And so I started uncovering a dark truth, which is that since 1933, the government essentially incentivizes the agriculture industry to oversupply. Oversupply means overproduce and basically take our taxes to buffer what they're not selling. And they do this legally. And so our vegan consumerism isn't actually subtracting the amount of numbers that die when our taxes are being that backdoor rich uncle to this industry. And so the reason for this is the Farm Bill. And so now I'm trying to educate and activate people to understand our next level veganism needs to be to become lobbying members, which means we centralize our money into a fund so that we can end up hiring representation in the form of lobbyists, starting with one, but hopefully a team to combat this. And the platform is to bring supply and demand back to the food system and basically the Farm Bill.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the New York Times had an opinion piece today. The Farm Bill ignores the real troubles of U.S. agriculture. While he made some excellent points about how the rich keep getting richer, most of the money goes to big agri. Small farmers are struggling, and they show this photo on the in the article, which I'm going to lower this so we can see who took the photo. Again, this was in the New York Times. You see it right there, big agri. We are giving the entire planet a buzz cut. All that used to be forest, and now it's a vast wasteland to grow crops. And some might think, well, good, you're growing crops, you're feeding people. But here's the truth. People are getting fed. What's getting fed are animals. We are 7.6 billion humans. And while we like to think of animals as our dogs and cats, the truth is they are not the majority of animals. Aside from insects, the majority of animals are not wild animals. We have decimated the wildlife of this planet, killing well over 65%. And at the rate we're going to have no wild animals on this planet except in zoos in a decade. What we do have is farm animals, and we raise and kill 70 billion plus land animals, not including fish, cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, lambs, every year on this planet. And all those crops you see in this photo that we just showed you, okay, all those crops, the overwhelming majority of crops are going into farm animals. Okay, 70% of soy is fed to farm animals. 80% of antibiotics
cutting out from
are going to farm animals. So I can hear you, Connie. Tell me what. Here's the point: the Farm Bill. It's winding its way through Congress. We're thrilled that the insidious evil King Amendment, which would have wiped out all the meager protections for farm animals that currently exist, is killed. We defeated the King Amendment, which was horrific, which would have allowed pig gestation crates, in every farm in America and other torture devices. But we still have this horrific, massive, ginormous farm bill that's going to subsidize the rich, drive small farmers out of business, and promote animal agriculture. What do we do about that, Connie?
Yeah, so I mean, the welfare aspect of the King Bill is an approach, and lobbying groups are going down that path, and it's a great approach. But we have to get to the source of our taxation, being, supplementing these industries to not only get freebies from the Farm Bill, but also ask for bailouts every year, and the cadence of bailouts is increasing every year. The other piece of it is that when you think about the Farm Bill gets voted in every 4 to 5 years. It just got passed by Congress and is now going on the president's table. A lot of these increasing. And so what it does, to your point, it creates an agriculture industrial complex where in the beginning in 1933, 90% of the farmer recipients were small farmers. Now, less than 20% are small farmers. 80% are mega farms. And when we talk about mega farms, we're talking about thousands upon thousands of heads of cattle or pigs or things like that. And sometimes they call themselves family farms because what they just adopted in this Farm Bill was that not only can the welfare fees go to the husband, wife, and kids, it can now go to nieces, nephews, and cousins. And so these families turn into their own corporation where nieces and nephews are getting $125,000 each per year. The parents get up to $1.9 million per year. And this is all welfare that we call subsidies, in a sense, that helps them drive more and more agriculture. And so the other piece of it is their insurance plans. 60 to 70% of the premium is paid by us. And so any reason at all that these animals might die or might not get sold, we basically are paying for that. So it's a industry that cannot fail based on all of their backup plans right now.
Yeah, but what can fail is our planet. And what really drives me insane is that while this author of this op-ed piece in the New York Times today was very well intentioned, he completely missed the point that animal agriculture is what the US government is subsidizing. And small farmers, big farmers, they're doing ranchers programs, millions, tens of millions of dollars into promoting ranching, when it's ranching and animal agriculture that is destroying the planet. What we need to do is to transition farmers out of ranching. We need to transition farmers into another form of commerce. We need to rewild some of this farmland because we're giving planet Earth a buzz cut. In literally 8 years, we will have no wildlife on this planet except in zoos. At the rate we are destroying forests to grow crops to feed farm animals. They want to keep the farm animals immobilized in warehouses called concentrated animal feeding operations to fatten them up quickly. When an animal is immobile, when an animal cannot move, the calories are not burnt off. That's why they want to keep them immobilized. Okay, so they immobilize the animals, they keep them in these torture warehouses called CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, where millions died trapped in these warehouses during Hurricane Florence. And there are images of pigs floating everywhere. And then when the animals die in these storms that are exacerbated by climate change, the USDA has an indemnity program and restocks all the animals that drowned with live animals because these beings are considered live or dead inventory. Okay? They are considered inventory. We have reduced animals to such a low position in our society while talking about how we are such animal lovers because we love our dogs and cats, but we have reduced animals to such a low position in our society that they cannot even be considered victims. We describe them as live inventory, live inventory. And this is morally reprehensible. And anybody who says that they can eat animals and they are not morally responsible for the torture and death of those animals is lying to themselves. But it's not just these individual decisions. It's the fact that the US government is the biggest pusher of meat and dairy on the planet. So address that a little bit, how it goes into schools, how they buy up and they keep these cheese caves. Tell us about that, Connie.
So yeah, so a lot of my research went into the founding of this country. I mean, we really are United States of Farmerica. I mean, the first settlers that arrived here in the 1600s, 99% of them were farmers. And so almost every law that was created, every district, every transportation route was created based on farmland. And so as we industrialized and changed throughout the 1900s and more people started living in urban cities and things like that, the reality is the laws didn't really change. The laws kept protecting this small group of farmers. Now there's less than 1% farmers and we're still protecting them. And so they are intertwined all over politics. Up until this recent election, 36 politicians were receiving subsidies from the Farm Bill. 36. They're basically farmers that are politicians. 100 more we found out have ties to either being a farmer, investor, or grew up on a farm. I mean, in fact, I live in Oklahoma now, and our House of Representatives, locally where I live, you won't find who grew up on a large hog farm. So you have these cowboy puppet politicians that are inserted all throughout Congress. I mean, I'm telling you, literally the majority. And so everything they do every year is they push through more and more money to these fat corporations, and they do it off the backs of our environment, off the backs of our money, off the backs of low-income people, off the backs of immigrants who work for them. It is a mess. And so our taxes right now do a lot of things. Our taxes pay for their insurance that allows them to restock those animals. They profit off of that. They wouldn't take a loss off of something like that. So I found.
Okay, I want to get back to. Yeah, let me say this. There is one thing we can all do. First of all, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm sharing this video. Hit share. Because if you share this video, like I'm sharing it right now to public groups that I'm a member of, if you share this video, you are likely to hit what I call a pre-vegan person. We have to transition en masse to plant-based food. And the way we can do it is by sharing this video so that other people see this. Let's say there's somebody who considers themselves an environmentalist, but they're eating animals and animal byproducts like cow's milk. Well, that's a cognitive dissonance because animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change. Now, why don't you hear about that? Because look at the advertisers, meat, dairy, and pharmaceuticals. You're not going to hear about it on mainstream media. They're all part of the whole carnage society that is drilling into us day in and day out that eating animals is a given. There's no alternative. But thankfully, social media is telling a different story. Thank God for Facebook. People sometimes are knocking Facebook because of the political issues. I understand that there are problems, but thank God for Facebook. We are able to tell this story to people. If not, how would we tell the story? The media is not covering this. The United Nations said animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change, responsible for more greenhouse gases than all transportation combined. It's right online, Livestock's Long Shadow. You can go online and you can see it for yourself. And then World Bank economists said, no, they're underestimating it. It's actually 51%. Okay, so whether you want to say it's the leading cause or a leading cause, it's definitely a leading cause. So let's be conservative about it. It's animal agriculture. That means meat and dairy is a leading cause of climate change. It is definitely the leading cause of habitat destruction. Every second that we speak, another acre or two in the Amazon and other places are being destroyed. They're being destroyed to grow crops to feed 70 billion farm animals, or they're being destroyed to create grazing land for cattle. I was just in Costa Rica where they are destroying an incredibly biodiverse forest to create grazing land for cattle. And this is also people who feel they have a personal choice, that eating animals is their personal choice and that nobody can tell them not to do it. No, I can't tell anybody anything. I am powerless over the decisions of other people. But if you have children or grandchildren, would you like them to live in a world that has at least some wildlife that is not imprisoned in zoos? Because if you continue eating animals and animal byproducts, everybody else is doing that, we will have no forest left, because we're just 7.6 billion humans. 7.6 billion humans, our carbon footprint in and of ourselves is not that big. It's the carbon footprint of the 70 plus billion cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, and lambs that is that big. They eat almost 40% more than they produce as food. So we're fattening up animals. If you consider yourself a humanitarian, we are fattening up animals while children die of starvation in third world countries. We've all seen the images. There's estimates that tens of thousands of children have died in one country alone. And of course, there are political factors, but they are dying of starvation. And we are fattening up cows and pigs because, well, it's a personal choice. Yes, it is a personal choice. So is the murder of a human being a personal choice. It doesn't mean that it's the correct personal choice. We all have to look in the mirror. And, you know, we love to point the finger at the Trump administration for being climate change deniers. Yes, they are. And yes, they did trash the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and they are rolling back all the environmental protections that have been created over the past administration. However, if we continue individually and collectively to eat animals and animal byproducts, we are also climate change deniers. The New York Times did say the most important thing, one of the top three that human beings can do individually to stop climate change is to adopt a plant-based diet, to adopt a vegan diet. So it's just not emphasized. People don't want to talk about it. Why? Because they're brainwashed into eating animals. We are subjected to tens of thousands of images routinely that tell us that it subliminally equate eating animals with upward mobility, patriotism, family values, sex appeal, good parenting, all this nonsense. That's called advertising. And because the people in charge eat animals, they don't want to have to change their behavior. Al Gore is reportedly a vegan, but he does not emphasize animal agriculture's role in climate change. Moby tried to do that during Al Gore's recent 24-hour climate change marathon, but Al Gore didn't want to discuss it. He kind of said, well, maybe it's overestimated. When Moby said it's at least 45% of the problem, well, there's those. He doesn't want to emphasize it. We live in a fear-based system where everybody's afraid of offending the big powers that be. And the big powers that be control all the big industries, including big agriculture, big pharma, and other big industries that you can think of off the top of your head. So you're not going to get that information from mainstream media. They will shut it down. They will poo-poo it. Even the most liberal commentators. You don't see even the most liberal commentators talking about this. They are literally have their blinders on. And so it's up to us to think for ourselves. So what Connie wants to do, and I want you to talk a little bit more about this, Connie, is what are you going to do to get lobbyists in Congress to start thinking differently? Or are they all just basically hacks for industry and, you know, it's a lost cause? Can you hear me, Connie? Okay, I think we got a little bit of an issue with her audio. But you know what? We do what we can. We do what we can in this world with social media to get the word out. Where we are living right now today is kind of like in the Soviet Union, where you would be persecuted if you spoke up against the Soviet Union powers that be. And so people would hand other people little leaflets and little pamphlets and saying, here's the truth, please look at the truth. That's where we are today. Because the real problem is not being discussed, not even in the New York Times. Look, I give this guy who wrote this article props. The Farm Bill ignores the real troubles of U.S. agriculture. I do. But he didn't get to the finish line. And I pray that the New York Times starts discussing the problem of animal agriculture, because time is running out. And I urge you all to help the Vegan Justice League, which is going to try to send lobbyists in to talk to legislators and wake them up. I know that's going to be a tall order, but we have to persevere. This is a David and Goliath battle. I urge everyone, please, please share this video with others so that they can get some of the facts that are being withheld and ignored by mainstream media. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time on Jane Unchained.